the movie business has worked assiduously to discourage you and other intelligent, discerning people from the theater, from the movie theater. They have worked hard to get rid of you because you don't go then buy toys and games.
They say Meryl Streep is the most respected actress alive, but not everyone in Hollywood agrees. Behind the trophies, the standing ovations, and the polished interviews, a quieter story has followed her for decades, one filled with jealousy, backhanded comments, and rivalries that never quite faded. From legends of old Hollywood who dismissed her as too technical, to fellow Oscar winners who admitted they couldn't stand her success, Streep's perfection came with a price, and not everyone could handle it. Today, we're diving into 7 actors and icons who reportedly clashed with, criticized, or quietly resented Meryl Streep. And while some of these stories are confirmed, others are wrapped in mystery, ego, and maybe even a little bit of envy. Before Meryl Streep became Meryl Streep, Hollywood already had its queen Katherine Hepburn. Sharp-tongued, fiercely independent, and unapologetically proud of her craft, Hepburn wasn't easily impressed. So when Streep burst onto the scene in the late 70s, winning Oscars almost as quickly as she collected scripts, the old guard took notice, and not always kindly. According to biographer A. Scott Berg, who chronicled Hepburn's private thoughts in Kate Remembered, the screen legend once called Streep her least favorite actress. Why? She thought Meryl was too technical, too controlled, too methodical. Someone who worked the craft rather than felt it. To Hepburn, acting was instinct. To Streep, it was art. And that difference, according to those who knew both women, sparked a quiet, one-sided rivalry that lasted long after Hepburn's era had passed. But here's the twist: Streep never fired back. When asked about the remark years later, she simply laughed it off, saying Hepburn was one of her idols. Maybe that's the secret to surviving in Hollywood. You don't fight the legends, you outlast them. But while Hepburn's criticism came from another generation, Meryl's next feud happened right in her own lane with someone who worked beside her and didn't hold back her opinions either. In Hollywood, some rivalries aren't born from fights, they're born from frustration. And when it comes to Meryl Streep, few have voiced that frustration more cleverly than Susan Sarandon. It started during the early 2000s, when Sarandon was asked about the lack of strong roles for older women. Her response was sharp and just a little icy. She said, "Everything goes to Meryl first." At first glance, it sounded like praise. After all, who wouldn't want their name mentioned next to one of the greatest actresses alive? But inside that compliment was a jab, a subtle one that every actor in Hollywood understood. Sarandon's point wasn't just that Streep was talented, it was that the system seemed built around her. Producers, casting directors, studios, everyone wanted a Meryl. And that meant other equally skilled actresses, like Sarandon, Glenn Close, or Sigourney Weaver, often got the scripts Streep passed on. To some, it looked like respect. To others, it felt like monopoly. And the truth is, Sarandon wasn't wrong. For over 2 decades, Streep had become the industry's first call for prestige dramas, the one name that could guarantee an Oscar nomination before cameras even rolled. It wasn't personal, but in Hollywood, opportunity is personal. Behind every compliment, there's a hint of envy. Behind every "she deserves it," a quiet "why not me?" Still, Sarandon never turned it into an open feud. The two have shared events, posed for photos, even exchanged polite words. But under the surface, that slight tension never really disappeared. It was the kind of rivalry born not from hate but from exhaustion, the feeling of always playing second place in a game that only had one queen. But envy is one thing. What happens when a co-star's method acting turns admiration into open hostility? That's exactly what Meryl faced next on a set that won her an Oscar, and left scars that took years to fade. Kramer vs. Kramer wasn't just one of Meryl Streep's earliest masterpieces, it was the project that made her a star. But behind the film's heartbreaking performances was a storm of tension between its two leads, Streep and Dustin Hoffman. Reports from the set described their working relationship as, at best, volatile. Hoffman, a passionate method actor known for pushing his co-stars, wanted authenticity at any cost. Streep, meanwhile, was meticulous, focused, restrained, and deeply protective of emotional truth. That combination was explosive. In one infamous incident, Hoffman allegedly slapped Streep without warning before a take supposedly to elicit a real reaction for the scene. It worked. The shock you see on screen? That's real. But so was her fury. Years later, Streep confirmed that she didn't appreciate it, calling Hoffman's behavior overstepping. In Resided, for her, acting wasn't about surprise or dominance, it was about respect. And that clash of philosophies turned what could have been professional chemistry into behind-the-scenes friction. Yet, the results spoke for themselves. Streep won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress, Hoffman won Best Actor, and the movie became a classic. But even decades later, when asked about that period, both have chosen their words carefully, polite but distant. It's the kind of Hollywood story that proves success doesn't always mean harmony. Sometimes it means surviving the chaos and walking away with the trophy. But while that feud was fueled by artistic clashes, the next one came from pure human emotion, jealousy, confession, and a rare moment of honesty from a fellow actor who actually admitted it. Not every feud is born out of anger sometimes. It's born out of admiration that cuts a little too deep. For veteran actor Brian Cox, that moment of truth came when he looked Meryl Streep in the eye and said, "I never liked you." It sounds harsh, even cold, but the real story is more complicated. Cox told it himself in an interview not long ago. He admitted that for years he carried a kind of resentment towards Streep, not because she'd wronged him, but because she was too good. He said, "I told her once, I never liked you, but I was jealous." That line might sound playful, but behind it sits a quiet truth about Hollywood. The higher someone climbs, the more resentment follows. Cox explained that watching Streep's performances made him feel inferior, that every time she transformed on screen, it reminded him of what he wasn't. What's fascinating is how Streep responded. She didn't take offense. Instead, she laughed and hugged him because she understood. In an industry driven by comparison, jealousy is almost inevitable. But the moment revealed something bigger. Meryl's success didn't just inspire, it intimidated. Her sheer consistency, her ability to disappear into any role, her grace under pressure, it left even the most respected actors wondering if they could ever catch up. And Cox wasn't the only one who felt that. Through the years, countless co-stars and peers have hinted at the same feeling: admiration, tangled with quiet envy. The kind that doesn't lead to shouting matches or drama, just that uneasy tension that follows greatness wherever it goes. Still, Cox's honesty made him stand out. He didn't hide it, he didn't pretend he owned it, and in doing so, he reminded everyone that behind the smiles and award speeches, Hollywood runs on competition, not camaraderie. But not all of Meryl's conflicts were emotional or personal. One of her most unexpected feuds came from outside the world of acting. A clash that had nothing to do with performance and everything to do with pride, image, and one of fashion's most powerful names. Meryl Streep is known for keeping her private life quiet. She rarely comments on rumors, avoids drama, and almost never makes enemies in public. But in 2017, that changed, and the person who pulled her into controversy wasn't an actor at all. It was Karl Lagerfeld, the late creative director of Chanel. Just days before the Oscars, Lagerfeld gave an interview to Women's Wear Daily, where he accused Streep of backing out of wearing one of Chanel's gowns. According to him, she'd ordered the custom dress, then canceled when another designer offered to pay her to wear theirs. He went as far as to call her cheap, a word that sent shockwaves through the industry. For someone like Meryl Streep, known for her dignity, integrity, and total professionalism, that accusation hit hard. She fired back almost immediately, calling his story false and slanderous. She said she had never accepted money to wear a designer, and called the accusation an attempt to embarrass her before the biggest night in Hollywood. The fashion world quickly split in two. Some sided with Lagerfeld, others defended Streep. But after a brief media storm, Lagerfeld publicly apologized, admitting that he'd misunderstood the situation. Still, the damage was done for a few tense days. One of the most respected actresses alive had been painted as petty and greedy. What made this feud fascinating wasn't just the accusation itself, it was how it revealed another side of Streep's image. For decades, she'd been untouchable above gossip, above scandal. But this moment reminded everyone that even Meryl Streep wasn't immune to the pettiness and politics of celebrity culture. And she handled it exactly as you'd expect, calmly, professionally, and without letting it define her. When she arrived at the Oscars that year, she didn't wear Chanel, but she did wear confidence. She smiled for the cameras as if nothing had happened, and just like that, the story faded. Still, the whole ordeal exposed something deeper. When you've been perfect for as long as Meryl Streep has, people start searching for flaws that might not even be there. But this wasn't the only time envy and misunderstanding got twisted into rumors. There's still one actor who clashed with her early in her career, a man whose working style collided with hers in a way that left scars across both of their legacies. And that story might be the most revealing one of all. When you talk about Meryl Streep's greatest performances, Kramer vs. Kramer is almost always on the list. It's the movie that made her a household name, emotional, raw, and unforgettable. But behind the camera, the atmosphere was anything but calm. Dustin Hoffman, already a major star at the time, approached acting with intensity few could match. He believed in breaking barriers literally. Hoffman was known for staying in character even when the cameras weren't rolling, for yelling, improvising, and pushing his co-stars to the edge. For some actors, that created magic. For others, like Meryl Streep, it crossed the line. Reports from the set say their relationship was tense from the start. Hoffman reportedly mocked her process, saying she was too sensitive, and in one infamous moment, he even slapped her without warning before a take. The reaction that ended up on screen, shock, anger, heartbreak, wasn't acting, it was real. Years later, Streep confirmed that moment actually happened. In a rare interview, she said, "That was overstepping. You could hear the restraint in her voice, no anger, no grudge, just quiet disappointment." What's fascinating is how those two approaches to acting, his chaos and her precision, ended up defining the movie's brilliance. Their on-screen conflict felt real because, in many ways, it was real. But that doesn't mean it was healthy. Crew members later described the set as emotionally draining, with both stars keeping their distance once the cameras stopped. Still, Kramer vs. Kramer went on to win 5 Oscars, including one for both of them. It became a landmark in American cinema and an unspoken lesson in how art can come from discomfort. Yet even decades later, when interviewers bring up Hoffman's name, Streep's answers remain brief, polite, professional, but distant. Some wounds don't need to be reopened, especially when the world still calls the result a masterpiece. But as the years went on, Streep faced something different. Not a feud, not jealousy, not conflict, but a reputation. A myth that followed her everywhere, shaping how other actors, directors, even fans saw her. And that myth became her final unspoken feud, the legend of being too perfect. If you've ever noticed, no one ever praises Meryl Streep casually. They don't just say she's good, they say she's the greatest. That kind of reverence can be both a blessing and a curse. For years, younger actors entering Hollywood were told to be like Meryl. Directors compared performances to hers. Casting agents used her name as shorthand for excellence. "We're looking for a Meryl type." It sounds flattering, but imagine living under that kind of weight for 40 years. Behind the smiles and awards, that image of perfection created invisible tension. Some actors admired her, others avoided her. A few even admitted it made them nervous to work with her, like they were being graded on every word, every breath, every take. Even actors who publicly loved her couldn't help but joke about it. Jennifer Lawrence once said that whenever someone praised her, she'd respond, "Oh great, I'm the Meryl Streep of this movie." What started as admiration slowly turned into a running gag, one that highlighted just how untouchable Meryl had become. But perfection comes at a price. When you're that respected, people start waiting for you to fail. Every misstep becomes a headline, every opinion becomes a controversy, and every silence becomes suspicious. It's no wonder that in recent years, fans and tabloids alike have tried to find cracks in her image, old grudges, rumored feuds, or secret hatreds that might make her seem more human. Yet, through it all, Meryl Streep has remained almost completely unbothered. No public outbursts, no social media spats, no tell-all interviews, just quiet, consistent excellence. Maybe that's what her real rivals never understood. Her strength was never just talent, it was restraint. While others fought for headlines, Meryl fought for the work. And in doing so, she built something bigger than fame. A legacy. Because when the applause fades, the gossip disappears, and the rumors get recycled into the next decade, there's only one truth that still stands. Meryl Streep didn't just survive Hollywood, she mastered it. But her story leaves one final question. Can anyone reach that level of perfection without making a few enemies along the way? By now, one thing's clear, even legends have enemies. For Meryl Streep, those rivalries weren't born from scandal or cruelty, but from the gravity of greatness itself. When you're at the top for as long as she's been, every choice, every performance, and every compliment casts a shadow. And in that shadow, jealousy grows. From Katherine Hepburn's sharp criticism to Dustin Hoffman's on-set clashes, from Susan Sarandon's side-eye compliments to Brian Cox's honest confession, and even that bizarre feud with Karl Lagerfeld, every story has the same thread. People don't really hate Meryl Streep. They hate what she represents, the impossible standard. Hollywood loves a winner, but it also loves to tear one down. And through decades of rumors, rivalries, and quiet resentment, Meryl never took the bait. She stayed silent, professional, focused. While others gossiped, she collected Oscars. That's the paradox of Meryl Streep. The more perfect she seemed, the more people tried to find a flaw. But the truth is, maybe that's her greatest performance of all. Not a character she played on screen, but the one she's played in real life, the woman who turned envy into applause and criticism into legacy. So the next time someone says everyone loves Meryl Streep, just remember, they probably do, but they also can't stop competing with her. Because in Hollywood, being loved is nice, but being unbeatable? That's what makes you a legend. Which of these rivalries surprised you the most? Hepburn's old-school disdain or Hoffman's behind-the-scenes clash? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more deep dives into Hollywood's most unexpected feuds, hit subscribe and stick around, because the stories you don't hear are usually the most revealing.